Welcome to the Relatable Oklahoma Realtors Podcast, the show that sets out to demystify the world of real estate. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, investor, or a realtor with years of experience, this is where real estate is discussed and explained. Join me now for our hosts, Stacy and Burl Stricker.
Okay, thank you for tuning into our podcast, Oklahoma Relatable
Realtors.
I'm Burl.
I'm Stacy Stricker.
Stacy.
It's been a minute.
I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. We've been all day.
Every day. Every day.
We're here with Jennifer.
And Billy Smith with Smith Title.
Yes. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it.
So
you can share mics too if you need to.
Okay. BP likes the reels. So they're married. They work together.
Oh, I'm going to record on this. All right.
So how long have y'all been in business?
We've been in business since 2017.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe it's been that long.
I know.
And then BP, you used to work for Culver Electric. You're going to have to share mic. Now we're sucked you into this.
Yeah, now that I'm involved, yes, I did. I worked
just like you got sucked into the title business.
That's right. That's right.
So how long ago did you leave Culver Electric?
I guess 5 years.
My gosh, I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, it's been a long time working with your wife.
And they're still married.
Still married.
They're still married.
Well, barely.
She still likes you.
Yes, we've done well. I've enjoyed the change. It's a lot better not having to go out in the field and freeze and burn up, be on call.
Yeah.
So I've enjoyed it.
That's good.
So Jennifer, for you guys, I have a question. So for somebody who's a lay person, and I was kind of surprised like how many people really don't understand what a title company does. Can you explain what you guys do in the most layman's terms, what you guys do?
So we take the file once it's under contract and we run abstracting, make sure that there's no title issues and you have clear title, and we take you to the closing table and we close it.
So
that is like the quickest version. There's so many.
There's so
much more to it.
It's like a 6-week process, but
So I think I've had this question a lot where somebody wants to buy a for sale by owner, and I was actually told this a couple of times where we're going to just do a quick claim deed, and we're just going to go to the courthouse. We're going to file our quick claim deed. And in their mind, it cuts out the attorney fees and it cuts out the closing costs.
This is so funny. BP and I just had a conversation about this last week.
And me, I'm like, no, we cannot do it. But because I'm representing the buyer, and even if we were representing the seller, this is a bad way to do it. And so really, they think they're saving money,
right?
But absolutely, can you explain why that's a bad idea?
So. Personally, I would never, ever, ever buy a piece of property with a quick claim deed. Quick claim deed means that you quit everything. I could sell you the moon with a quick claim deed and not warrant anything, not guarantee anything. And so a quick claim deed just is a easy, fast. Usually you see those in family transfers. Or from you individually to a trust that you own, or a parent or a child. A warranty deed is what we handle the majority of all of our stuff with. I don't like quick claim deeds, so we don't prepare them very often. Right. A warranty deed, the seller on a warranty deed warrants that he is giving you clear title.
There's no digging,
title issues.
No one's checking it. On a quick claim deed, you're basically taking the seller's word for it.
Absolutely,
and which they don't even know. I mean, honestly, they don't. Because if you mentioned abstract, and we talked about abstract before, that Oklahoma is unique in the fact that, if you had to describe abstract, an abstract is literally who owned it from inception to this point, and if I own a piece of property, I don't know all that stuff.
Right.
I don't know the history of it. I may have owned it for 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's what you guys are looking at.
Yes. So if a seller or if a buyer buys title insurance, Jim Brown or whoever does the title opinion, they're going to do a 30-year chain of title on it. So they're going to go back 30
And that's the
years.
attorney doing that.
Yes, the attorney that reads it after it's been updated and abstracting. And so he's going to go back 30 years at least. Jim usually goes back to inception of state. But the thing is for title insurance and for most banks' satisfaction, you have to go back at least 30 years and clean up any title issues. So when you buy properties with a quitclaim deed and you just take your seller's word for it, you can also take on tax liens, IRS and Oklahoma, which we've seen several of those here lately. You're taking on a foreclosed vehicle that was filed in the county records, those liens, those judgments, child support judgments. You're taking a risk in taking a property with any
Do you want to
issues.
share like the one that we're dealing with? It's Rachel's deal. I just kind of stepped in to help.
Yes, we come through a file, and there was an old mortgage in place, and everybody would just been kind of quick claim deed down the road, and not an actual closing done.
Because maybe they were a cash buyer.
Yes,
Because lenders
probably-
won't take a quit claim deed, right?
Right. Yes, it was probably just a cash transaction. It wasn't, a whole lot of money each time. But now we have a old mortgage in place, and the person that holds the mortgage is out of business, so we can't get a lien release.
And that was
it
like
was probably
3
paid
sellers.
off, but we have no record of
Yeah.
any of it. So
And that was like 3 sellers ago.
Yes, it's been like 3 previous owners to it. So, and I've tracked down all these people trying to, find where somebody done a closing, and they just, no, we just done a deed prep and went down the road. So that's what you get into with quick claim deeds.
And
We've even had some where they have what they call a HUD mortgage. The sellers don't even know about it until it comes up on the title opinion.
Yeah.
That they had these type of mortgages. So it's always best to do a title opinion. Attorney look it over, and in his report it gives us, all the mortgages that are outstanding,
Right.
and whether it's that seller or previous owners or whoever. And, that way we can have time to clean them up and get everything taken care of.
Ultimately, what happens with this seller that we're working with, it's costing him money to clean up and do.
Yes. To
that
actually clean
banks-
this up, it's going to take like a quiet title suit where you have to hire an attorney and go through a court case. There shouldn't be any issues, but it's just more time and money to have to do these things.
Right. So then we have to extend the closing and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Put it out another 30 days or longer, depending on, if the attorney they choose is busy.
Right.
And,
That's a good case scenario if it's 30 days.
right.
Yeah.
So it can be timely and costly process to clean things up after you buy a property with a quit claim deed and didn't know about all these issues.
Yeah. I think that is probably good to ask if you want to explain what title insurance is. Because that will help clean that up.
Absolutely. If the person would have bought title insurance when they bought it, 3 owners ago or 2 owners ago, we could have gotten their owner's policy, and that title insurance company would have hired the attorney to fix up these issues.
And where the seller wouldn't have to pay it out of
Exactly.
pocket. Yeah.
Yes.
So when
because
they
purchased the title insurance at closing.
Right. At the beginning. So that house is, I can't remember what it's under contract for, say $100,000. So what's a title policy?
A title policy on $100,000, you're looking at probably $560, $600 one-time fee paid at closing.
Yeah.
And it covers you from everything the day the deed is filed and backwards. It's not like homeowner's insurance where you are paying for future accidents.
Right.
Title policies cover everything the date that the deed is filed and backwards to fix any issues from title opinions. Because a lot of people don't realize it, but title opinions are just that. It is just an opinion of that attorney that reads that abstract. I can give an abstract to 5 different attorneys and get 5 different opinions.
Yeah.
And it's only good for as long as that attorney is alive.
Yeah. So like typically when an attorney reviews one, like you see, a lien on there from the mortgage company, and that's a normal.
Correct.
And we pay that off at closing. I know we've seen some others on there before that sometimes we can work around, like you were saying, the HUD one that they don't know about. But if there's proceeds, then we can pay that off, right? Maybe
Correct.
Is there some other examples that you can think of? I know we've seen tax ones; those are kind of hairy.
Mechanics liens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, mechanics liens, the good thing about a mechanics lien is it's only good for 1 year. And this is probably better information for people that file actual mechanics liens. When you file a mechanics lien, you have 1 year to turn it into a judgment. After that, I don't have to collect it at closing. It's null and void.
Wow.
Yeah.
Judgments. If you file a judgment against somebody in the county records, you have to renew that judgment every 5 years or it's null and void. I don't have to collect it.
Really? Wow. Now, I didn't realize this. I learned this on Friday when we were talking, that one with that bank, it had a maturity date that has already passed I think it was 21.
Yes.
And so.
It doesn't automatically fall off, I assume.
No, that's what I just learned. It does.
Most of your mortgages have a maturity date, not all of them, but when they do, then that means that's the time where this mortgage was supposed to have been paid off by. So once that matures, then you have 7 years wait. And if it's not released in that time, then it's called a dormant mortgage. So we don't have to worry about it.
What about something like, you see this a lot in Oklahoma? I was kind of surprised by this when I moved here, but like doctor bills and those kind of things that they're filing liens, and you don't see that in a lot of other states, that I've been at. But
a bunch of those are going to be, they're waiting on insurance claim. So it's not really something against the title of the property. They're just letting everybody know that this has happened, and they're still waiting on their money from the insurance. So it's not necessarily an issue against the property at most times. Most of your liens you can read on them, and it'll state this is not a claim against the property. But
I see.
if it don't state that, then yes, we got to try to clear it up.
So really, that title company is like a mediary between the buyer and seller, and it helps really. One of the things that I am always amazed by is the amount of paperwork that is actually involved. When I sit at the closing and I'm seeing this mound of paperwork, which can be very intimidating to see that mound of paperwork. Do you think you'll ever go just completely paperless?
Gosh, when will we?
So we do have several lenders that are, they'll do hybrid closings. And so everything day of closing will be e-signed except for what we have to notarize. And, we still have some lenders that just don't do that.
Yeah.
And they send us 140 pages of stuff that has to be hand signed. And
I get that because they want to make sure.
Yeah.
Like the mortgage.
Yeah.
So if you had to summarize what's in that, because the last closing I was at, you definitely have the mortgage paperwork.
You have the mortgage.
And you had a VA.
And then I think
that was
you
even
guys
more.
had, VA and those kind of governmental loans, those actually have more paperwork involved. And then I saw also, I think that y'all had a set of papers for your own office.
We do.
Is that right?
We do.
And so what I've noticed in paperwork in the past is that whether you're talking about healthcare or where you're talking, it seems like over the years we just add more and more and more until somebody's
environment, trying to save the environment.
And then there's a new lawsuit.
Well, then something happens and we say, let's redo this, because we have too many paperwork.
Yeah.
Because it just ends up being one paper on top of another paper.
Well, Jennifer, I don't know how many times, or Theresa, when they're doing the closing, will say, we've already gone over this. Actually,
just sign it again, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yes.
It's kind of hard because you always hear this term, like read it before you sign it. You hear that your whole life. Your parents teach you that. But then you also realize as you're sitting there that that's pretty difficult to actually do. If somebody actually read all that before they signed it, then you're talking, come on.
I mean, they do a great job explaining it.
Yeah, for sure.
We really do try. And there's a lot of times that there's forms in there that we've never seen before. Yeah. And so we're learning them with the buyers just, also. But the majority of stuff, that you're going to have in those closing packs. Of course, there's going to be closing instructions, which tell us how we need to proceed and, all of our pre and post stuff that we have to do. You're going to have a mortgage. You're going to have your note. You're going to have any riders that attach to that mortgage. Mm-hmm. You're going to have the closing disclosure. You're going to have your compliance agreements, errors and omission forms.
Like if you forgot to sign something, you have to come back.
Your limited power of attorney that allows us to date or initial anything for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Your name affidavits, your
That's
aliases.
How big a difference? Is there major differences between like if you're doing a commercial type closing versus like a residential?
It just kind of depends on your lender. You go secondary market, with your big banks and your closing packets are huge.
Yeah.
And then you go in-house with your banks around here, local banks, and they're not as big. I mean, they have the general stuff, but not all of the extra stuff that you see secondary market.
I think one thing that's interesting in Oklahoma, and you've ran into this a couple of times already, is that even if your name is not on the mortgage, but you're married, you have to come in and sign seller and buyer.
Twice recently for me, because they're like, the husbands, and maybe in both of them are VA loans, but VA is like, I'm doing the loan. And so they don't think their spouse needs to be there. But that's mainly an Oklahoma thing, isn't it?
It is. So even though the spouse is not on the note, they 99% of the time are on the mortgage. Occasionally we'll get them and we'll tell the buyers, hey, your spouse needs to come to sign, and they get there and there's nothing that they need to sign.
Can you explain that? I know I'm
it's
going to
crazy.
sound like I'm not. I'm explain the difference. You said they're not on the note, but they're on the mortgage. Okay. Explain the difference between a note and a mortgage.
So I've always been told that the most important document in a closing pack is the note.
Yeah.
And the note being the contract between the buyer and the lender. And so your note is going to be who all is on the loan. Mm-hmm. The mortgage is what we file at the county clerk's office that just basically puts it in title and has all of your legal, stuff. If you don't pay, you don't get to live there anymore. Foreclosure process, things like that.
Like your late fees.
Yeah.
The title attorney know that there is a note. When they're reading the title opinion.
Yeah. And so, but in the state of Oklahoma, by law, the spouse has to execute the mortgage.
I see.
Basically, it's like another person they can go after.
Pretty much.
If they default.
But I will tell you, when we do write title insurance on those properties, if they're not on the note or the loan, the spouse does not go in title. So technically, you can't go after that spouse that's not on the deed. For anything, because they don't have any homestead rights.
So they
to
don't
that
go
property.
on the deed. So we have had people at closing where they're like, can you prepare another deed? Because if something happens to me, I want my spouse, or if they are not married.
Right. And we can do that.
Yeah.
A lot of times the girls will say, well, the buyer's spouse is not on the note, but we need a separate deed prepared. And we just do all that when we do the title work. If we know up front, hey, we're going to do, we'll have one deed to John Smith, and then we're going to do a separate one from John Smith and wife to John Smith and wife. And we'll file that after the original deed and the mortgage.
So then they have joint tenancy.
So then they are holding it as joint tenancy, because if not, Jane Smith's going to have to probate John Smith's estate if he passes away.
You actually showed it can be on the opposite end too. And I've seen that with you dealing with it. Like, okay, we're separated, and I'm selling this house. And my wife's not on this. So that's what they think. And then they think, but they realize quickly that they have to be a part of signing for it as well.
You're legally married, even though maybe they weren't married when they bought the house, right? Yeah, and then they're legally married when they sell it. Both parties have to sign.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's an Oklahoma thing.
It is.
Oh gosh. And that can
That can
cause some
upset
problems.
people. I've seen that happen
Yes.
with you, that you're dealing with that situation where they're upset. Like, why does she
Or if they've
upset me?
inherited it. I know we've all heard it all. That's not even theirs. Why do they have to sign it? Blah, blah, blah. That's just an Oklahoma law.
But you can see how it's a kind of a safety measure, I think, for as well.
Well, they can't
I
go
can
and
see the
sell
good
a
in it.
property
But, yes.
without their permission.
Yeah.
I've always heard that the reason that that became a thing in Oklahoma, who knows if this is true or not, but I've always heard that it was implemented so that the men could not gamble the homes away and the women and the children would lose the homes back in the day.
Oh, that's funny.
Because she has to sign, the spouse has
Yeah.
to sign that deed
So
over.
that's something that
Well,
went
this is
in
a
law
little bit off the
forever
topic,
ago.
but it's the same kind of situation. If you have a life insurance policy and let's say the husband dies, but then they before that they got a divorce, the husband dies, and then actually, and it has the ex-wife as the beneficiary, actually it will forego that person because it's an ex-wife. And then there's some safety factors in there as well
Yeah.
that Oklahoma puts in place that most people do not realize.
Right.
Seen that happen.
Yeah,
So interesting.
it is.
What, back to something you were talking about, I think a big question that I get asked, and again, I'm pretty new in real estate, but I get constantly asked by either the buyer or seller, when's the closing? When's the closing? Can you explain to, and a lot of times, honestly, I thought, man, I'm not sure. You know,
And then Pearl's asking you, and he's like,
I-
Jennifer's like, it's up to the lender.
yeah. So can you explain what sets that time frame, what sets it
Yes.
in motion? Because I know at some point you say, okay, we're having the closing date on this
Right.
date at this time because of the schedule, but also something puts that in motion.
Sure.
It goes from I know you have a contract date. Which
We have
is important.
and we try to say we're shooting for this
Yes.
date.
Yes.
This is not the date.
So what sets that in motion where you can actually officially set the date?
Okay. So we have a process. We've learned several things over our 6 years almost in business. Just an easy process and that works for us and the reasoning behind it. When we receive a contract that, let's say they are going secondary market, we have a closing date of July 1st. When we get the contract, we enter it into our system. And then it goes to a spot that we're waiting for a lender request, because your lender that's giving the loan will come in and give you a lender request with your loan amount, your loan number, their requirements for title.
Like
work.
instructions.
Yes,
Yeah.
instructions that tell us what to do. That basically tells us that we're good to proceed and that loan is, for the most part, somewhat good, because they're not going to write a request if they haven't even loan apped these people yet. So sometimes we're waiting on those because they haven't loan apped them yet, and we don't start any title work until we get those lender requests. So if you're set up with your financing and you're really good to go and you've loan apped with your lender, it moves a lot quicker. If that is something that you are working on after you've written a contract, I mean, we could be 2 weeks out before we even get a lender request, and we haven't started any title work. Another thing we don't start title work for is if we don't have earnest money. And I
Because
learned
you're
that
technically not under contract.
exactly, because after what,
Yeah,
3
and that's
days?
3 days.
That's the very basic of law.
Yes.
That you have to have basically, what's the word? But you have to have the earnest
It's
money
within
that
72
puts it
hours.
in, puts
Hey,
it into.
Yeah,
this reminds me.
exactly.
It's one of the elements of a contract.
Yes.
Hey, this reminds me. They need our abstract.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We'll grab it. We'll get it.
It's at the
Gotta
house.
find it.
You know,
That's another
We have
issue they
no
run
excuse
into.
for not knowing where it's at.
no,
Yeah.
I know, right? Mine was under my bed, but now it's not.
I think
So,
it's in our safe.
yeah. Um,
Moving on. Go ahead.
so once we have the earnest money, we have the lender request, we order abstracting. So then it goes to the abstract office, which we are not the abstract company.
That's literally from the courthouse,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Well,
Or no?
well, they're an abstract company,
They're
but they
separate.
get all of their stuff from the courthouse. Correct.
I see.
Yes. And each county has at least one.
Mm-hmm.
And some counties take a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
We've got one county that takes 30 days to update an abstract.
Is there not a regulation that they have for like?
There is. And I think I just read it not long ago because I had to print it out.
I was thinking it was 14 business days.
So I think it's for a new build. I want to say it's I could be completely wrong. I think it's 21 business days for a new build and 17 business days for an update. And I think that is a blanket from the abstractors board. We have some abstractors that will get an abstract update out in 2 days.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I've got some that, you're the 3 and 4 week period. And those are tough because people keep calling and they're like, well, when's this? Well, when's that? Well, we're not in a position to be the hounders to the abstract office because they're my lifeline.
Right.
If I upset them or if I irritate them in a way, I don't want to be put on the back burner.
Yeah, I don't either. It's just the
yes,
process.
It is. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work out and they get them out super quick.
I see the right word is not political, but I think there definitely has to be a sense because you're dealing with so many different parties. And I could see it even in you describing this situation where you have the buyer and their agent, and then you have the seller and their agent. Then you have the abstract. You have multiple
the lender,
lender,
yes,
involved
and the attorney.
multiple parties involved, and it could easily. It's like you're trying to get them all work together, and you could easily piss off one of them.
Exactly, absolutely.
And then they don't
and we
want to,
have,
and you see that is a very touchy in the middle, trying to stay in the middle.
Yeah.
And you don't represent the seller, you don't represent the buyer, you don't represent.
No,
the
we
lender.
are Switzerland, and I have been told on many occasions by my attorney, you are neutral. You have to play neutral ground. That is your position.
And each industry is regulated.
Yes.
We all have our regulations and we do have to respect those timelines.
Yes.
It's part of it.
It is.
So and I'll see it too, we'll get a contract in for 30 days. Oh, no, we cannot close an USDA loan in 30 days. It's not going to happen. No. In Western Oklahoma.
Like what we talked about. It's good. Doing the front end work, you know what I mean? I think that I can see where I struggle with it out of inexperience, and I can see where other people struggle with it. You're not having those good front end conversations about realistic time frames, realistic what's expected.
Manage expectations.
If you're managing those expectations up front and doing a good job as an agent, for example, and making sure that you're aware of that. But as you're learning, it's hard to know all those different.
Yeah.
And it sometimes you see them come in and you just kind of cringe because you're like, golly, and you don't, we make people upset. And usually the ones that get really upset with us are the realtors. I mean, it's just how it works, I mean, because they've got their buyer or they've got their seller on their side that's, hounding them, and which is understandable. And so, we try as best we can, I mean, once I get it back from the abstract office, I can rush it. I can rush it with the attorney and take it to the attorney and be like, hey, I need you to do this one for me, right now. First, please. And then I can gather up all of my stuff to get together. But man, until I can get it back from the abstract office, I mean, my hands are tied, there's nothing I can do.
But you're right. If we, it's 17 days.
Yeah.
That's the time frame.
You see those 30-day contracts come in, like you said, on a USDA or a VA loan, and there's an appraisal and there's this, and it's like, man, you're almost setting us up to fail.
Right.
We're all fixing to fail.
One little thing gets held up, and then all of a sudden you can't make that date.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
one little tiny thing.
Yeah.
Tell us, what is the one thing that you wish realtors would do for you?
I wish that they wouldn't tell their clients to call title office.
Oh, I don't do that.
It happened. We talk to buyers and sellers all day, every day.
Yeah. That'd be almost, to me, like hearing that.
No, that's my job to handle that. I don't tell them to do that.
It would almost be like, you're representing the buyer and say, hey, call the seller. And, you'd be like, we know that's a no-no.
Well, you can't do that.
Now, I do have some that know you very well.
And, that it happens.
I called and I was like, hey, I need your abstract. And you know this person very well. He's like, I've already given it to Jennifer. I was like, oh, okay, great.
I mean, it happens. I get it. But we get a lot, we have a lot of new people coming in from out of state and out of town, a lot. And maybe it's not the realtor, or maybe, they just take it upon themselves to just call us. But we deal with a lot of buyers and sellers on a daily basis.
the out of state buyers, like that's how it was
I don't know. Maybe
where they were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know. I know like my last 2 deals, like I've had a couple of deals recently that they knew you very well.
Yeah.
That they would just, they're telling me they called you.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean,
So that's a good one. Like we really need to.
I was kind of surprised,
that.
honestly, and I'll give you guys kudos for this. Like I was surprised that, I had a closing in Lawton, or the buyer, I was representing the buyer. The buyer was buying a house in the Lawton area, which is about 2 hours from here. And you guys came there, and I was pretty happy about it. I didn't, I mean, obviously Stacy told me that you guys would do that, but I didn't know, because I'm working those farther away areas.
Yeah.
So how far are you guys willing to go?
So in our business, if we sell title insurance, that's where we make the majority of our money.
Right.
It's more profitable for us if you buy title insurance than if I'm just a settlement agent, because at that point we're just a notary, basically.
Yeah.
If you buy title insurance, I'll come anywhere in the state of Oklahoma for you.
Yeah.
No.
And Teresa loves to travel. She loves it.
I was pretty surprised, and I think that is a great service.
Yes.
Yeah,
and another thing
they'll do it at the office.
Yes, the real estate office.
And you said it, and it helped me understand this as well, is that the buyer is the one that determines who they're closing.
Yeah.
And that's something that most people do not.
Yeah, we do not.
Because they try to talk me out of it,
Yeah.
Because I put you guys as the closing. And then they wanted, do somebody closer, but I just felt more comfortable with you guys doing it. So,
and usually the conversation goes when we're writing the contract. This is how I do it. So there's wherever you are, there's 2 closing companies in our community. This is blah, 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 and this is blah, 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 and then it goes from there. Yeah. So, and they pick. And then a lot of times they say, well, I don't care. Yeah. Who do you choose? And I'm like, well, then you start going down the road. And if I'm out of the area, like you're working in Lawton, then you say there's title companies here, or there's one here that's willing to travel that we work with quite a bit. And usually they want to go with who you and your lender, who are their lender, who they have worked with.
Your point is they have choices.
They do.
Right.
And that is important.
The seller does not get a pick. The realtors do not get a pick. It is completely up to the buyer.
Yeah.
100% there.
But that relationship is really important. Like I've noticed so far that like the lender relationship is huge. Back to that Lawton deal, it was kind of like a national company, and oh my gosh, it just one thing after another that just wasn't.
Well, and it's very important that your lender gets along with the title company as well, because they are in constant contact. Yeah. So just, we all have to work together.
That Lawton lender, though, I didn't have any issues with them. Anytime she really needed anything, I think
it was more on our end before we got to you.
Well, yeah, but I think that theirs was, and also underwriting. Oh my gosh, the underwriting end has been really bad here lately, and I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know if they've just picked up a bunch of new underwriters, or they're trying to make sure that all their T's are crossed and I's are dotted. I don't know, but I've run into that here lately, probably over the past 60 days. I've run into a lot of underwriting stuff. So, but like with our business, like when I started, it was me and Lana Graham. She was out for school because she was a teacher. I forgot
about that. Yes.
I had never done a closing until the day I owned it, June 2nd, 20.
But you heard him. And we forgot to say this. Jennifer used to be a realtor as well.
Yeah, I did.
Her mom was a lifer.
That's right. I forgot about it.
Mom's a lifer.
Hey, let's tell Nancy.
I think
tell Nancy one of her listings went under contract
in other areas. I think that's good that you do have that experience in other sides of it, other aspects of it.
Well, it helped because I knew what an abstract was. I could somewhat read a contract. Wayne Wilson taught me a lot. I worked for Wayne,
our previous broker.
Yes. Well, and I think people will be surprised when you take the real estate exam that those topics are in there.
Oh my gosh.
Those topics in there. We talked about several subjects that I know was on that test.
So one thing that's changed in our market in the last few years, I'm curious your opinion on it, is that you now hold escrow money. Thank God.
Yeah. Some
used to
don't
be the agency.
So the office would hold it. And so we don't even have a trust account.
Yeah.
So it goes to the title company.
Yeah. There's not there are some that don't like that. And I'm perfectly fine with that. If you do not want Smith Title to hold your escrow, you are more than welcome to hold your own escrow. We'll collect it at closing, no big deal. But when we do hold it, unfortunately, I have regulations and guidelines in order to release that earnest money, which come from my underwriter. If the contract were to
fall apart.
I've realized in this business, and it's really not just in this business, than many other, but you mess around with that money and you're in trouble.
Big
That's
trouble.
exactly why a lot of us have stepped away from it. Because that's the biggest
It's very clear
real
that that's
estate
the case
commission
when you deal with other people's money.
Yes. And I have to, unfortunately, if it busts, I have to have the buyer and seller both have to execute the release stating where the money goes. And until I can
that can be a point of contention, really, right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, written
do they get back that money or do they not get back that money? And I'm honestly still a little pretty gray over
sometimes
that
it's
issue.
like,
it kind of depends on the case.
It does. But sometimes it's like, can we just split it and go on about our business?
I know, because we are talking about a nominal amount of money when it comes to the overall
like $500.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And the last interpleader that I did, that I had to hire an attorney for, because I can put it over and I can give it to the courts.
Yeah.
But I can't release it anywhere else.
Right.
But the last interpleader was $1,900. So
that was for one
interpleader.
Because I know we've got, I'm sure all of us here in Elk City have a few.
Yes.
And
the person that won the interpleader case had to pay my legal fees. So
I'm sure
it's not even worth it because your
it.
earnest money is
$500.
$500.
Money that was $10,000, or I would have just been like, file small claims on them. I'll give it to Beckham County Court, and then they can disperse it, or you can get an order from them, and I'll disperse it at that point. But I wouldn't do an interpleader
we need
unless
to find like a new attorney.
We've got some really good ones,
like a brand new one that'd be willing to like clean. Like, hey, can you deal with all these earnest cancel files or whatever?
Yeah.
But I've dealt with like a trust fund type and healthcare. And part of it is like, you'll be surprised. Like, let's say that and y'all might have been discussing, y'all lost me a little bit, but all the words y'all using. But the point is that if nobody's there to come get the money, like let's say everybody dies.
Yeah.
Then how you deal with that money is pretty complicated.
Yes,
it's not an easy deal.
It's got to go through court.
Yes,
and then at some point, something on that case, I'd have to probably take it through court. And I'm not even 100% sure if this is right, but at some point it'd probably go to Oklahoma unclaimed money.
Yeah. That they publish, hey, we have all this unclaimed money. Yeah. That's exactly what happens.
Because there's one, this was like over 10 years ago. Sherry and I had a deal and it fell apart and
nobody collected it and now they're all gone.
It was like seller wouldn't give it up. It was over an inspection. Seller's like, no, I'm not giving up. It's $500. Like, would you split it? No. Well, he's been deceased.
Yep. Yeah. That's
for years.
You can't find who the
But the contract states, and I've been told, because I'll have people come to me and go, well, but what about this? And I've reached out to Mike Shambor, he helps me a lot, the attorney. And I'm like, and I ask him and he's like, no, you're not an attorney, Jennifer. You cannot interpret that contract.
Well, so the contract states
job.
that the broker can make the decision if we're holding it, right? Because I tried to get you to do that.
And I can't play like I'm the broker because I'm not the broker.
Right. So I tried submitting a letter to you because I'm like, I hate old files lingering.
I know.
So I thought, well, maybe this would work.
And I have tried sending out notifications to people. I never get any response from them. Yeah. Never. They're not going to respond. Yeah. So, maybe one day they'll come through the door, and I know it upsets people. Well, you should just give it up. It's this, it's that.
Well, we can't
I can't do that. If my file gets audited, then I'm in trouble because I've given it up. And what happens when that guy comes back and wants their money, then I got to write him a check.
Yeah. And I
don't want to do that.
I'm not going to risk my license over $500.
Right. Well, Jennifer, thank you guys so much for being on the program.
So, Jennifer and Billy Smith.
Yeah.
Smith Title.
We play a little game. We talk about a subject and it's either overrated, underrated, or just right. And we would like for y'all to participate. So the first one I have for Stacy is insurable roof. An insurable roof. I would like to know if it's overrated, underrated, or just right.
Oh my gosh. It is so underrated. And you know why I'm going to say this. How many deals have I dealt with?
Yeah.
And
So,
buyer, especially first time home buyers, when they're doing inspections, they don't understand how important it is
mhm.
to have an insurable roof. One, if you're getting a loan, you have to have an insurable roof
Yeah.
or you can't get the loan. So I'm battling that right now
Sure.
with a buyer.
You have any thoughts, guys, on insurable roofs?
You better take that one.
Yeah, I know that it's killed some deals before, almost at the
Yeah.
closing table. So that's never fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the worst at the table.
Roofs are such a big expense when it comes to the home.
And you have to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My next one is overrated or underrated billboards, like out on the highway or those billboards, that advertisement. I would like to know your thoughts.
I'd say just right.
Just right?
I mean, I think they work. I think they're expensive,
Yeah.
especially on the interstate.
Mm-hmm.
When you get in Elk City, they're not crazy expensive.
Yeah.
I'd say just right.
Like
You
for
guys?
us, like
Yeah,
are
for
you-
just marketing wise,
for-
yeah.
like just me for marketing. It's probably just right. It's not something we've ever done, but I hope that our work
Mm-hmm.
is
Word of
what
Yeah.
is what does it for us. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, what we
Yeah.
produce and what how we treat people. And you know, sometimes you might catch me on a bad day, so I might not treat you great, but tomorrow I will. But you know,
Yeah.
just the work and the time and what we do to fulfill a file and get you to the closing table. I hope that speaks enough for itself. So
Yeah.
It definitely does.
The last one, overrated
Well,
or
what did you
underrated?
think? You didn't
Oh,
answer it.
yeah. I think billboards for the right business is the right industry. I think there are businesses out there, which we talked about, like roofing, I think is a great example. Furniture is a great example. Car sales are a great example, that you have to constantly put your brand in front of people. And it's
Right.
usually items that are like, let's say every 5 plus 10 years you buy, then you need to constantly be in their vision in order for them to remember you when it's time to buy that item.
Right.
If it's something you buy daily or weekly or more frequently, billboards aren't going to be the biggest.
Yeah.
Like in
That's
this
true.
case, well, and then also the reason I do agree that Jennifer, that you guys' business is not necessarily great for a billboard because, you know, nobody's going to be driving on I-40 and see, oh, there's a closing company. Yeah,
Right.
nobody's going to. But,
Yeah.
however, the realtor, maybe, because if they see something that they want to, if they remember, okay, I want to buy this land that I saw, then yes, that calling that realtor makes more sense. I think that really you're like, it depends on your audience as well.
Yeah.
And I think that that's, you know, true.
I know that Facebook has been crazy. Like people will come in and be like, okay, we're going to take a picture, you know, because that's just kind of our thing. That's what
Yeah.
we've done from day one. And people are like, oh, I watch your pictures all the time. Or people will call
I
and go,
remember
well, I
when
saw
I
you
first,
on Facebook.
yeah, when I first started doing pictures, they're like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm dressed up and ready to go.
Yeah, yeah, they're like, it's moving day. I don't even care. Just take
Yeah.
it.
Is there, and I mean, I know this is kind of a different question, but is there any level of confidentiality that you guys have to deal with? Like, I know, like, it seems to come up a lot, like where, you almost like, if I'm going to take a picture with my client, we just sold our house, then really, you know, it's a fine line, because I just did a
Sure.
closing recently and they're like, we'd rather not do that.
Sure.
And I'm just curious, does that come up very much?
We do get people that'll say, I don't want my picture. I've had people say, I don't want people to know I just bought or sold.
Yeah.
Please do
Yeah.
not post that
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
And most people know that that's what we do. Speaking of the confidential side, though, yes, we have to have a certain shred box and it has to be
Yeah.
locked and it has, you know, not
a lot of personal
accessible to people.
information
Correct.
involved.
And, you know, I just learned I've never given, and it's been a big topic, I've never given the buyer's realtor the seller's closing disclosure or vice versa, because there's personal information, you know, how much
Right.
their payoff was. Well, the buyer doesn't need to know that.
Yeah.
And the seller doesn't need to know how much interest the buyer, you know what I mean?
Or what
Things
they
like
put
that.
down. and-
Sure.
yeah.
And so, but recently it's been, I have found out that if I do an ALTA settlement statement instead of the closing disclosures, I can release those to the opposite parties. So not the closing disclosures, but the ALTAs I can. So
Yeah.
you'll start seeing ALTAs in your closing packets. And you'll see,
Interesting.
you'll
All right,
see
last
both sides.
one. This is more on the funny personal side, but I was curious is it overrated or underrated to have fake tans, like spray tans, anything fake tan?
I mean, underrated.
Right? I mean, that's a dumb question to ask us.
Gosh, I feel amazing when I am tan
Me too.
and skinny.
Fat tan
100%
is way
skinny.
better than white
Skinny
tan.
and amazing.
I-
As a matter of fact, my tan is gone.
I don't even have one.
I need it back.
Me too.
Time to go get one.
I'm probably not going to say it right, but I love this saying. It's like, if you can't tone it,
Tan it.
If you
That's
can't tan
true.
it, tat it.
Well, that's true.
Oh.
If you can't tone it, tan
Tan
it.
it.
If you can't tan it, tat it.
it.
So there's some truth to that. I think
It's true.
Is there?
tan fat
I
looks
feel like you
better.
can tan
It does.
Tattoo fat even looks good. Who knows?
I think only on men. I don't think that's a female thing.
No tramp stamps allowed.
Man,
Oh my gosh.
All right, Jennifer. How can people, if they want to basically learn more about you, what is a good way for them to? You mentioned Facebook. Maybe it's Facebook, a way that they can connect with you and you guys and what you guys do. What is that?
well, just ask your realtor. They'll tell you to call
There
me.
you
No, I'm
go.
just
I
kidding.
like
We work with a lot of realtors out here in Western Oklahoma, and I hope that they recommend us and that, they would tell their clients about us. We are on Facebook. We post mainly our closings on there. Occasionally we'll do other things. Nothing, it's not as fancy as you all's, your tips and trades.
You've got to have a Devon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And I don't have a Devon because I don't have a Devon. And I don't do it because I'm lazy.
I think, like you said, though, word of mouth.
Word of mouth is a
Really,
big
that's
one.
like a very generic. I'm not generic, but it's more like a grassroots.
Yes.
And in that y'all's business, I can see completely why grassroots matters, and
Yeah.
it's like word of mouth really matters. And
It
there's some
does.
businesses that absolutely is the way to market. And I think you guys are right there, and I think you guys do a good job.
And their
so.
Facebook page is Smith Title and Closing.
It is.
There
It's
you
not
go.
Smith Closing and Title, which is out of Alabama. And we
Smith
do get
Title
their,
and Closing.
yeah, we do get their phone calls and emails occasionally. And she got one of mine the other day. She called
That's
me.
funny.
It is.
That's
So-
All
funny.
right. Well, thank
Well,
you guys
thanks
so
for
much.
coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
it.
Thanks for having us.